We've talked about the new era here in DC under Paul Toboni, but who will benefit the most under this new regime? I've got a few names that you'll want to watch for.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. And later on in today's program, we'll have a discussion surrounding data and analytics. I mean, we've talked about it a lot on this show under this new regime, but what does that exactly look like and what will be different? I'll explain what will be different, what will be happening, and what that data and analytics look like that will be helping these Washington Nationals players. So stay tuned for that very interesting discussion later on in the show today. But I'm going to tell you why and which players will be very different under this new regime and players that I really expect a lot out of in the year of 2026. But today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So things are going to be a lot different under Paul Toboni, but who will benefit the most from this new regime? The first player I think about is James Wood. I think James Wood is your most toolsy player that we have at this point. And when I think of data and analytics, I think of who can get the most out of a player. That's kind of what it feels like. And when we discuss data and analytics, I think kind of like the shorter version of that would be, how can we have this player, specifically James Wood, and how can we get him to reach his tip-top potential? I think that is exactly what data and analytics are, and that's exactly what you will see. This season, James Wood was incredible, reaching the 31 home run mark in his first full season. Someone had a 3.7 WAR. Yes, he did almost have the strikeout record, and yes, we would like to see him cut that out. But right now, James Wood is by far and away your most talented player. I think of someone like him. He is going to be the biggest beneficiary from this new regime. You are going to see a much better, more improved, more disciplined, and less chase of a James Wood. This season, the things that we saw from him, number one was the power. You saw the opposite field power. You saw him have pull-to-pull power each and every single side. He pulled the baseball. He could sting the baseball in the left center field gap. He did all of it. He made the red porch out in left center field. He made that James Woods territory. I think of someone like Wood. I think he is going to be a much better, more improved player. Now, what does that look like exactly? I think James Wood, and really what he can get into, is cut out with the swing and miss and really hone in on his craft. Specifically speaking here, how many times did you see James Wood take on a 0-1 pitch, a fastball down the middle, or a curveball that's hanging and he's not swinging? Those are specific things that James Wood has to fix in his game. This is way too dangerous of a player to be taking pitches like that. This is someone who can, again, pull the baseball if he wants to and hit one 460 feet into the second deck over at Nationals Park, or you can send it over to the red porch there and have a 430-foot left center field blast. That's the kind of power that this guy brings. And unfortunately, what I saw, kind of one of the negatives that I saw from Wood this season, was someone with that power and someone who was just that good at the plate. He took way too many pitches in the zone. Now, you could sit there and say, well, maybe those just aren't his pitches. I don't think it's necessarily that. I think James Wood maybe got some bad advice. Maybe he was waiting on his pitch. I don't really necessarily know why he would take those pitches, but how many times this season would you see him sit there and take an 0-2 fastball in the zone? way too often than not. I saw that with James Wood all season long, and that was one of the most frustrating things. So with Paul Toboni and analytics and different swings and different situations, I think he can be coached up into figuring out how to pull those pitches, into how to make the most out of those opportunities. So he's my number one guy to watch. My number two guy to watch, C.J. Abrams. I think CJ, who again might be one of the toolsiest guys that we have. He has proven that he can hit for power. He has proven that he can steal 40 plus bases. He can hit for average. He has the kind of the special plays defensively that we have seen. Is he not that good defensively speaking when it comes to return plays? Absolutely. But I think at the plate, CJ has been this case study with the Nationals that is fascinating. You go back to 2023. You think of the second half that he had where he was just a monster. And then last season in 2024, you think back to his blazing start in the first half of that season. Could have been an all-star, probably should have been an all-star, and then completely fell off and was sent down to AAA after a little mishap on the road. And then this season, starting off red hot again, falling off in the second half. How can you fix those struggles? Well, I think in CJ's case, I think right now, just kind of the struggles that we have seen in the second half, I think it's partly because, let's be honest, this team was checked out. This team was completely checked out, and they kind of knew what was coming. They knew that Davey Martinez was on the hot seat this year. I think everybody in that clubhouse knew after he called out the players that it was time for a fresh start. And I think maybe some people within the org were thinking, probably wouldn't be bad to see Mike Rizzo go either. And that's exactly what happened. But I think Abrams, as far as his ceiling goes, it's not as high as James Wood, but it's also not as far as you would think, at least that gap there. And I think he could bridge some of that gap between Abrams and Wood. He has proven that he can be a 20 to 25 home run guy. He can prove right now that he's an easy 2020 candidate each and every single season. But you got to find a way to patch up some of those inconsistencies. And some of those that I think of with Abrams, well, number one, it starts defensively. I'm not sure how much data and analytics can really kind of patch up CJ Abrams' deficiencies there. I mean, it's clear what goes wrong. He cannot make the routine plays. And a lot of times it's a mechanics issue, and maybe they fix up the mechanics. Maybe they'd hit home with him, and he can kind of figure things out. And you have a veteran in the clubhouse say, hey, this is how we do it at the big league level. This is how you should be doing it as well. Because I also think that's in part of this play here with the Nationals. You traded for Nathaniel Lowe for a reason. You needed a first baseman and you needed a left-handed power bat, obviously, there. But also they needed a leader in the clubhouse. A veteran who has won a World Series. A veteran who has been there and has done that and sees and knows what the right way to do things is. Unfortunately, that was not the move that they probably should have made. But hindsight is 2020. But with Abrams, I think he's one of those guys who could easily take his game to the next level. And I think with the tools that he has, he's able to put the ball in play. He doesn't strike out at a crazy rate. He can draw walks when he is being a little selective at times with pitches, and I think that's a good quality to have for him. But he's got the potential to be a very, very good offensive weapon coming from the shortstop position or even the second base position or wherever he finds himself playing defensively in the future. I think Abrams is one of those guys that will take a step up, and he will be a lot better going into 2026. Last but not least, MacKenzie Gore. MacKenzie Gore is going to be a very interesting guy to watch this offseason because I've put it on the record. If I'm the Nationals right now, I would consider trading him. I would consider moving him. I think you can get a lot of value in return. I would have done it at this past year's deadline, and I wouldn't have been happy. This is a top-of-the-line starter, in my opinion, and I think there's a lot of room to grow. But in this scenario, as we just mentioned, there's a lot of room to grow. When you have swing and miss stuff the way that MacKenzie Gore does, I want to see what he could do. with the data and the analytics and the background of Paul Toboni. I think back to when the Red Sox just traded away some of their top prospects to bring in Garrett Crochet. Now, I don't think MacKenzie Gore is Garrett Crochet. That's a Cy Young winner there. That is one of the better pitchers in today's game. But I think MacKenzie Gore has not reached his tip-top ceiling. And when reaching your tip-top ceiling from a pitcher, you saw what the Red Sox just did. And a guy that Toboni mentioned early on in his Grant and Danny interview a few weeks ago was Connolly Early, a mid-round pick, came in, a really talented left-handed pitcher that they were able to figure out different pitch mixes, how to use them in correct situations, and you saw him pitch in big-time games for the Red Sox down the stretch. I think they could do that exact same thing with Gore. Now, do they decide to trade him to try to get value back in return and place it all around the infield or the outfield? Maybe. But also, if you were to keep him on this roster, then I think this is going to be the season where you see that real ace potential. And we saw it in the first half. It did fall off a little bit in the summer, but we all know this. He is a lot better than what the numbers indicate. The swing and miss stuff is way too good to have him have an ERA in the fours. It's just too good. And I think some of that has to do with some defense, obviously. Having a poor defense behind him has really kind of hurt him in a lot of different ways. Having bad run support for the Nationals. It seems as if every 5 days when Gore is out there, the Nationals only put up like 1 or 2 runs. And then when Patrick Corbin was out there, you get 6 to 7 runs, but he gives up 9. Like, that's just kind of what it has felt like over the years with Gore. But he's, again, one of those guys where I think will take a step up and you will see a much improved version of MacKenzie Gore. But what exactly does data and analytics look like? I kind of went through different organizations. I went through the Red Sox. I went through like a team like the Astros, the Rays, the Dodgers. What does data and analytics look like in the year of 2026? Let's talk about that because I just say data and analytics a lot. I'm going to tell you exactly what that means after this. I'm going to tell you about our friends at FanDuel. And yes, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways that I can play. I've built parlays, I've tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. For instance, Monday Night Football coming up just next week against the Chiefs for the Commanders. I have got the Chiefs winning big. I've already taken the spread at 14.5. I think they will blow out the Commanders. It is bad. It is ugly, and it's going to get uglier. But when I'm with FanDuel, I can make that game even more exciting. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, that is FanDuel.com, and download America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. Now, let me tell you about our friends at Monarch Money. And let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, and let alone what they are worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. And that is why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or even on your phone. And it's helped me organize all my accounts and track my spending and get a better handle on my investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. And I love that I can review everything with my partner, see our shared goals, and make better financial decisions together. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks, and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. So what exactly does data and analytics look like under the Washington Nationals? And I went to other organizations and discussed this. And I think just when I hear data and analytics, the first thing I think of is tracking data and like sabermetrics. Now, what are sabermetrics? This is like the foundation of baseball analytics, using data to measure a player's true value. That is like weighted on base average, weighted runs created plus. Weighted runs created plus, a stat that we use a lot on this show. And I think it shows just how much better or worse a hitter is than league average, and that 100 is league average. Like we have seen over the years, James Wood put up WRC pluses that are well above 100. CJ Abrams at portions in his career. Luis Garcia has done the same. And then also with tracking data, exit velocities. We obviously know what exit velocities are. Launch angle, the way that the baseball's launched off an angle, if it's a 45-degree angle, a 38-degree angle, whatever it is, it can show you that exact angle. And then for pitchers, spin rate. Spin rate is a big deal because it kind of just gives you the ability to show how nasty a pitch could be. The higher the spin rate, likely is the more movement. And if you can get someone with a very high spin rate, throwing high exit velos like a Paul Skeens type, that is kind of the perfect marriage between analytics and the common day game that we know of, which is baseball. And with that baseball, you have guys throwing 100 miles per hour. This is going to be used in a very, very different way, in my opinion. This is not going to be some, man, Mike Rizzo just abandoned analytics. I don't necessarily know what he used, what he didn't. I can tell you this. Mike DeBartolo made it pretty clear that it was not at the forefront of Mike Rizzo's thoughts. Like when Mike DeBartolo took over as the interim GM, he made it very clear that he wanted this to be used in a big way moving forward. Like some of the first things out of his mouth was, we're going to use data and analytics in each and every single game. We're going to use it to try to win games. Didn't necessarily work for the Nationals, but it's also one of those things that can't happen overnight because a lot of data and analytics is actually really behind the scenes. The things that we don't see, the things that we don't see, like exit velos, obviously we can see that, but the way that teams use analytics, it really just kind of determines how a team is. For instance, a defensive shift. When you're doing a defensive shift for, let's say, Bryce Harper coming up, obviously you can't stack guys on the right side of the infield anymore, but you still can get a good idea of where Bryce Harper is. Let's say Bryce Harper, I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but let's say that he kind of favors that right side of the infield in between first base and second base. If you look at his spray chart, you can see that, oh, this is someone who hits it commonly at that side there, right there in between first base and second base. You will then shift over that second baseman just a little bit towards first base, maybe play him a little deeper in the outfield, and you'll see like, hey, the ball lands a lot of the times, at least on average, in this area. We are going to try to beat the numbers there and stick right there and hopefully make a good play with Luis Garcia. That's kind of one of those defensive shifts that obviously you have seen, but that's the explaining and the reason as to why they do that. But also, it's not just used in a day-to-day stuff. It's used in player development. You can identify good pitchers by, again, looking at spin rates and velocities. Teams like the Rays have done this at an exceptional rate. And even the LA Dodgers, they look at pitchers that are like, oh, you think Blake Trinan is kind of broken at this point? That's kind of cute. Let's take him and make him a monster. Let's take Alex Cole, put him in a platoon position, and make him someone who is an everyday player for this Dodgers team. That's the kind of potential that data and analytics bring. And I think that really, when someone says data and analytics, what it means to me is we are going to make them the best possible player for themselves and for this team, obviously. It feels as if what data and analytics brings to the table is that you will see the ceiling of that player. If you're a Nationals fan out there today, have you truly seen the ceiling of any of these players? We have seen glimpses of it, but you cannot tell me today that MacKenzie Gore has reached the tip top of the ceiling. He is a great player, an all-star, and someone that should hopefully be here for a while. But the Nationals have lacked in that department. And I think that, again, even going down to the minor leagues, and we will get to that at some day eventually here over the next couple of days. I want to tell you who I think will benefit the most from the Toboni era in data and analytics. But right now, just looking at the Nationals on this roster, I think Luis Garcia has a little bit more. I think James Wood has a little bit more. I certainly think CJ Abrams, MacKenzie Gore, they certainly have a little more. Brady House, Dylan Cruz, all these different pieces for the Nationals, they have more in the tank to give. But over the years, you have not been able to see them reach that tip top ceiling. I think that's what data and analytics will bring to the Washington Nationals in 2026 and beyond. But furthermore than that, I do want to jump into some of the numbers here and just some of the other things that you'll hear a lot of on this show moving forward. So this will kind of be your dictionary of Locked On Nationals moving forward. So stay tuned. We'll tell you more after this. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it, and that is why I use GameTime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. GameTime is fast, easy, and backed by the GameTime guarantee. And you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price that you pay. So I think the app makes it super simple to buy tickets, but also see the view from your seat. When I open my phone and on GameTime, I look at the views from my seats on my phone before buying so I can see any obstruction or anything of that nature. And of course, the best feature is fees are included. So you can know your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download GameTime today. So what does data and analytics mean for the Nationals, and what does it mean for the Nationals moving forward, and what could it look like? The number one phrase that I think you are going to hear about a lot is pitch design. The Nationals need pitching help. You are going to hear a lot about data and analytics when it comes to pitchers. So, pitch design is when they use high-speed cameras and spin data to help pitchers tweak grips or arm angles for optimal movement. I think of a team similar to the Tampa Bay Rays. When they made that trade for Tyler Glasnow back in the day, Tyler Glasnow was a solid prospect, a good, pretty big prospect, but never reached his full potential until he went to the Rays. That is a team that uses that strategy with pitch design and trying to see the most optimal way for them to throw their fastball and the different arm angles that comes with it. I think a team like that uses that strategy at a big time rate. And also the Boston Red Sox. That is what the Red Sox have done. This is a new regime here that will be heavily relied on data and analytics. So you will hear words like hitting adjustments and kind of like thinking to yourself, well, what does that mean? Well, it could mean that they analyze exit velos and launch angle to teach players just how to lift the ball for more power. Because obviously, to hit the ball out, you have to have it at a good launch angle. You're not going to have a ball get hit out at a 7-degree launch angle. It's not going to happen. We all know that. It's got to be like a 45, 60-degree, whatever it has to be. It has to be in that area. But also, teams like the Dodgers have used this very well. Max Muncy, back like a decade ago nearly, was DFA'd by the A's. All of a sudden, Max Muncy goes into the Dodgers lineup and becomes their everyday third baseman moving forward and has been the key part for the Dodgers franchise over the last decade plus. That is someone who is a big-time player in the postseason. And I actually looked this up, but player that other teams that gave up on, and you use analytics to really kind of hone in on Max Muncy and other guys like maybe you could think of a Chris Taylor with the Dodgers back in the day. That kind of, if you change up like their swing paths and change up the way that they grip the bat or whatever it is, that gives them more power. And right now, Max Muncy has the most home runs for a Dodgers player in postseason history. That is someone who was DFA'd by the Oakland A's back in the day, was picked up by the Dodgers, and has been an incredible asset for their organization. If you think about some of the bigger names in sports, these are guys like Shohei Ohtani, who's going to win another MVP award. That guy is an analytics monster. We could talk about the pitching at another date, but like a swing path analysis, you think of that, and they taught hitters like Shohei Ohtani to elevate the ball more, and that's kind of part of the launch angle revolution that has been happening around baseball. You are going to be hearing a lot of these buzzwords, and right now, the Washington Nationals have really lacked in that department. So as far as like data and analytics go, it means all of what we just talked about. Swing path analysis, launch angles, exit velocities, pitch shapes, and all different things out there, and hitting adjustments and pitch design and how things can be used. All these things are data and analytically driven. Something that I think the Nationals have lacked over the years, but right now, Nationals fans, you should feel good about where we are going with these analytics. And I think they will be used in a big way for the Nationals as we go forward into 2026. So stay tuned for that conversation as we go into this offseason. It's going to be a lot of talking points to happen, but it's early on or later on this week, we'll be discussing some of the minor league players that will be seeing much better, big improvements, in my opinion. So stay tuned for that conversation. I think it'll be a fun one. There's some big time names on this list, maybe a couple first rounders that crack my list that could be seeing improvements with. So thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. I will catch you on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.